Hello there, all of you humans. This week I'm making something that's a little bit closer to an uncut kind of live video. A few months back I made a video about how I create thumbnails for my videos. Now since then that process has changed a little bit. It's pretty similar, but there have been a couple of changes to the technique of what I do to make it faster and look better. And that video was very short. This is going to be the entire process going through in just a screen recording format. I do have a quick question before this starts. Would you be interested in an actual live version of this that would be streamed that could answer some questions along the way? I've been tossing around that idea for a while now of kind of a graphic design live stream, and seeing Sarah Dietschy and John Hill's Adobe Live video editing live streams just kind of pushed me over the edge. You can let me know what you think, if you think that'd be interesting or not, using a poll right... What side is it on? It's there. Also, finally, I'd like to apologize on behalf of my computer fan. It's very loud. I'm sorry. Now, logically, the first thing that you should do for any graphic design project is go and find some music to listen to while you're doing it, or else you will go mad. So I'm going to open up the Majestic Casual royalty-free playlist because I can use it without getting sued or copyright claims. Okay, so now that you've done that first step, you can get started on the rest of the project. I've got my footage here from the video, so I can just drag this in to HitFilm and then try and find a good facial expression. Since this video is kind of a vlog format, it's a very simple thumbnail, just my face. I'm not going to be adding any weird elements, but this shows you the general technique. Okay, this is the best frame that I've found so far, so I'm going to go ahead and make the project for doing this, which is a 1 frame long composite shot. I'll just call this thumbnail and make the duration for this comp 1 frame. So you're eliminating all of the animation and all of the potential movement from it, and it's basically just the same thing as a Photoshop file. Now I'll drag in any good expressions that I can find. Okay, I've got my 2 generic vlog thumbnail frames, expressions here, whatever you want to call them. Now I think I like this one a little bit more, so I'll delete the top layer and go ahead and start working with this frame. Now the first thing I need to do is isolate myself from the background, be that using the mask tool over here, or it's called like the freehand tool, I think. Yeah, freehand mask in HitFilm. That would be the pen tool or the masking tool in most other programs. Now this is pretty simple. You just go in and trace around the shape of me. Don't put the Ed Sheeran song in Future Self. Thankfully, I have copyright claims to keep me from doing that. So this is a really boring part of the process, and I will probably speed it up. But if I don't, then I'm crazy and you get to listen to me talk for quite some time. Isn't that great? Something you might notice happening once you've gotten a very large mask going, once you have a lot of points on your mask, is that it might result in a little bit of a lag and a delay when you're drawing points in. Since you might be able to see on my screen, it's stuttering quite a lot, it's not very responsive, and it makes it very difficult to draw your mask. So what I'll do here, if my computer will respond, this again, HitFilm, you gonna do this to me? In the middle of the video? As I was saying before HitFilm crashed on me, there's a trick that you can use when that happens, when your points get very unresponsive and it gets very difficult to draw a mask. What you could do is end this mask and start a new one, and then it will be responsive again. So, what I'm going to do is separate this into two masks, one for my arm and one for the rest of my body. So, you'll select all of the points before we got to my arm. You'll select all of the points on my arm, that is, and delete them. So I'm just going to go through and delete all of these points. And save a lot, because HitFilm doesn't like me to record videos with it. Woo! So we can close this mask off, and then just close that circle, and then we have me, but I don't have an arm. So we're going to go through, turn this mask off, and start a new one, and add that back in. Also, if this happens where you start a second mask on the layer, and then you draw it, and the entire thing disappears, all you need to do is move that mask up to the top of the mask section. Just a little HitFilm wrangling tip there. Now, as you can see, we've isolated me from the rest of the frame using two masks. So we have two separate masks at work here. Normally what I would do is duplicate this and then delete the masks from that, so that we have me separate from my background. We can toggle that on and off. Now, there are a couple of disadvantages to this. One is that if you blur out the background, you'll have sort of this halo of similar colors around you. It's a kind of odd appearance where there's a little bit of a glow that's very unnatural around you. The other thing is, if you maybe wanted to be closer to the edge of the frame, then since you're isolated from the background, you could just move this layer over, right? Not quite, because you're still back there. But what we can do, since I was preparing when I filmed this, is go into this frame, and I have a few seconds with nothing in the background at the end. So we can take that frame, drag it down into the comp behind me, then scale it up, and then we can move me around within the background. You could also just replace the background, but this is a little bit more easy and natural to do. Now I'm just going to add in some text. This could be a lot of things at the moment. I'm pondering whether I should write Indie Mogul Vlog or just something generic like hello there, because there are a lot of new subscribers. So I think I'll start out with that one. So I'll create some new text layers. I usually use 1280 by 400 for the resolution, and I'll just start writing this out. I use a font called Uni Sans a lot for my thumbnails. I'll make this text as large as I possibly can, and then duplicate it to have the next layer. I usually just use white text, but you can use colors as well. And I'll just write hello there, and then scale this down to match. Now, I'm very obsessive about the text being the same size, so I'll go through and tweak this until these are basically the exact same size. So I'll try and get both edges lined up. There's really no reason to be this meticulous about it. You're not helping yourself, you're just wasting your time. But if you have time to waste, it's all good, right? Don't frame that quote. That's not good, that's not helping anyone. But there we go. We have our text so that it lines up, and I will parent the bottom layer of text to the top layer so that we can move them around together and they don't get split up. Now I'll put these back behind my hand just to add a little bit more interest and realism to it. Then move the text up to the top, and now we can start working on the background and everything. What I'll do is turn off the masks to get a grade that I like for this layer. So the first thing that I use is white balance correction, just to get that white, and since I have, just to get that right, since I have a wall in the background that is white, I can use this. As you can see, there's a little bit of a change there. I'll probably talk about a lot of things that I've made other videos about in this video, so I'll have cards all over the place that'll link to other videos about similar topics. Also, this music is making it difficult for me to concentrate on filming, so I'm just going to turn that off. Then I'll use curves to add some contrast and get the brightness where it needs to be. That's a bit much, and I've made a video about this entire color grading process, so you can go watch that. I'll put a card in the top right corner. And once I'm done with the curves, I think that looks alright. I can go in with color balance. I like to add a little bit of blue into the shadows for no real reason. That's more grading than color correction. I just think it looks nice. And then a little bit of hue, saturation, and lightness to add some saturation. Don't touch hue because you'll ruin everything. Now that that's done, we can turn the masks back on, and then I'll copy and paste all of these effects onto my background so that it matches. And when you're using HitFilm, one thing that I've noticed is that these will sometimes get out of order when you copy and paste them, so you need to watch that and make sure that nothing gets out of whack, because that's bad, obviously. Next thing that I'm going to do is blur out the background. Now normally, sometimes I would use a lens blur, but I think since I'm doing a screen recording right now, as well as having HitFilm open, my computer will catch on fire. And I've already done that in the past, so we don't need to have a repeat of that situation because it wasn't good. And it led to me moving entirely. If you don't get that joke, I'm sorry. This is like bad. I usually use a radius of between 5 and 10 for thumbnails. Since it's so small, it needs to be more than 2, which is what I use for videos. So I'll use a blur radius of 10 here, and then that's all I really do the background for now. Next, I'll add some drop shadows to the foreground layers. That's the text and me, the layer that's me cut out from the text. I don't know why I'm pointing to my screen. That doesn't make much sense. But I'm going to scale the layer with me on it up a little bit so that I fill the frame more and I'm not that concentrated towards the bottom of the screen, and move me over to the edge there to get a slightly better framing. So now what we can do is add a drop shadow to the image of me. I should probably rename these layers. Me, hello, there, and background. There. That's a little bit more intuitive. Then I'll use this drop shadow effect. I usually use an angle of 135 to have it going at sort of a 45-degree angle in that direction. That didn't make any sense. Basically going at a slanted angle downwards away from me, but since this looks kind of weird with my ear there, I'll try out maybe 90. And that's a little bit too high, so I think 100 is a nice spot for that shadow. Now for the text, I like to contrast these against that, so they'll be going more in this direction. That would be what, about 225 for the angle. Turn the blur on it completely off, and then lower the opacity a little bit, and then move those down in that direction. Then I'll copy and paste that exact effect onto the second text. That looks alright. Now we can add a couple more effects to the background, first of which is some grain, because I like grain. Grain is nice, it's fun, it's a little bit edgier. Then sometimes I would use a vignette on the background. If I was editing the video, I would use this because the other way takes too long. I would just turn the softness way up to have an edge blur, but I'm going to go for a little bit more of a boxy shape here instead of a circular shape. With a vignette, it's a bright circle in the middle of the frame and everything else is dark. I want the edges to be dark, so I have a bright box in the center. Now, the way you can do that is by creating a new grade and then masking a box to that grade around the edges of the frame. Then I'll use brightness and contrast, everyone's favorite, very basic color grading effect, and then turn the brightness down. Now that screws everything up, but just turn the grade on and off, and it's okay again. HitFilm is weird. Just put up with it. Now, as we can see, this clearly isn't right. There's a lot wrong with this. This is a very sharp looking box. That's not what we want. So what we can do is go into the mask properties, go into the shape, and turn the feathering up so that it's a little bit more subtle, and most importantly, invert the mask so that the edges are darker than the center as opposed to the other way around. So as you can see, we're blurring out the edges here. Now I'll add some sharpening to the picture of me simply by using the sharpen effect. Now since this is so small in the final thumbnail, you don't need to be too subtle with sharpening since this would be super noticeable, but since it's just very small on the thumbnail, you don't have to watch it that much. And it'll probably help you to move that behind the drop shadow that's a little bit softer towards the edges. And that is just about it for the very basic template for my thumbnails. There's probably going to be a few more things that I do to this, a few more details that I add in, but for now, this is good enough to post. Make sure you answer that poll in the top right-hand corner. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing and liking and commenting and all those cool things that you people do, and I will see you later.